What's up, Lost Boys? Here we are for our Week 4 fantasy football recap. And what a week it was. We talked about how we hadn't gotten any really close games yet this year. And this week finally lived up to the hype. So let's get right into the games. And then we're going to talk about some interesting Week 5 matchups. First, our matchup of the week this week was Justin versus Jace, our first place versus our second place team. And wow, did it live up to the hype? Came down to the games last night. Jace had Tyreek Hill. Justin had Denver D. It looked like Jace was going to get this game. The Dolphins were feeding Tyreek Hill in the first half. He looked like he had it easy. And Tyreek ends up breaking his leg in half. It was kind of nasty. I was watching it live. You kind of knew it immediately when it happened. And after that, that catch gave Jace the lead. I think it gave him a 1.5 point lead. So he had to have Denver not get anything or Cincinnati score points after that. And unfortunately, for the next 2 quarters, Denver got a sack, which gave Justin the lead, I think, by maybe one. They gave maybe 2 sacks. But most importantly, Cincinnati never scored a touchdown. They stayed at 3 points. If they would have scored a touchdown, Justin's D would have lost 3 points. Jace would have won. Unfortunately, the other bad beat was I think these two teams scored the first and the second most points for the week, or at least close to it. So not only was it a bad beat for Jace scoring so many points and losing, not only was it a bad beat the way Denver D ended up getting just enough points, but it was another bad beat because he lost Tyreek Hill for the year. So Jace was already kind of weak at wide receiver. He's been fortunate enough for George Pickens to take over the lead role while CeeDee Lamb's been out, but he loses Tyreek Hill for the year. His team is still incredible. He's definitely going to need Rashee Rice when he comes back, but he loses. Justin gets the dub, goes to 3-1. Justin's team looks insane. And this is Justin put up 178 points. This is after AJ Brown puts up 1. This is after David Montgomery puts up 1. I mean, if he starts getting stuff from his guys, he's going to be even better. So Justin's team's really scary. He has the best player in fantasy right now. Actually, he has the first and the second best player in fantasy right now, in my opinion, Bijan Robinson and Puka. So stay, keep an eye out for Barreto because he is on a mission right now. Takes the dub. Big, huge win for Justin. Next matchup, Josh versus Ryan. This was also a very, very close game. This game was within 1 point going into the Monday night games. It was basically Chase Brown versus Garrett Wilson. Whoever scored more was going to get the victory. And luckily for Josh, Garrett Wilson ends up getting that incredible touchdown catch in the fourth quarter to push him over the edge. He gets 17. Chase Brown, who's been an official bust this year, unfortunately for Ryan. A lot of people had him hyped. This Cincinnati Bengals offense has been a huge bust, which we'll talk about that a little bit later. He only gets 8 points. So Josh takes the victory, beats Brian by about 10 points. Good news for Ryan, though, is he did score a lot of points, 163 points. This was kind of the theme this week. The top 6 scoring teams all played each other. The bottom 4 scoring teams all played each other. So kind of some unlucky beats there. No huge blowouts per se. But Ryan's team did put up a good fight. Unfortunately, it just wasn't enough. That Baker Mayfield, Egbuka, we talked about Ryan's best pick was Egbuka. That guy's been awesome all year. I think he has 4 touchdowns already. Baker had a stinker of a first half. Seems like the garbage man this year. Every week Tampa Bay gets behind and then they end up coming back at the end. He had back-to-back 70-plus yard touchdowns in the second half to give his stat line some life. And then Mahomes is rolling, boys. Mahomes is rolling. So Ryan's team looking scary, but his wide receivers are a little iffy. Ricky Pearsall may have got hurt. Josh on the flip side, he gets a much-needed win. This was his first week without CeeDee Lamb. He goes to 2-2. The big thing was for Josh was Romeo Doubs. He decided to put him in his starting lineup, and him and that big-ass helmet of his got 3 touchdowns, 26 points, made it the difference this week. Josh's wide receivers were his strength coming out of the draft. It looks like it's still his strength with Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra, Romeo Doubs, Devontae Adams, all of those guys getting touchdowns this week. Not to mention when CeeDee Lamb can come back healthy. The problem is his weak point seems to be his second quarterback and his running back. So Josh gets the must-weeded win. We'll see where his team goes going forward. Next, we're going to go ICU versus Learning Computers. This was a big matchup because it was two 2-1 teams. And I mean, it was a big matchup based on record, but unfortunately, the score was not very big. 113 to 104. Tim gets the win. Very lucky to play Matt, who ends up putting up 104. These guys' teams both looked pretty terrible, if I'm being honest with you. We'll start with Tim since he got the dub. Horse turd hair is looking like a big pile of horse turd right now, as is that Ravens offense. Tim's starting 2 tight ends. That ain't good. Ja'Cory Crossy-Merritt, that ain't good. So Tim's in a weird situation right now. I mean, Scary Terry was hurt. Travis Hunter hasn't done much. Jaden Daniels is hurt. He has Woody Marks on his bench. Jackson Dart, maybe he decides to start him. I mean, we'll see. Tim needed Ladd McConkey to be awesome this year, and he's been anything but. So Tim's team's a little rough, but he does get the dub. Matt, on the other hand, Lamar went out with a hamstring injury. He's been carrying him this year. Matt had this was a fantasy manager loss this week, unfortunately for Matt. He had so many points on his bench this week. For some reason, he decided to hipster it up and change what had been working for him this year. He decided to bench Jordan Love against the awful Dallas defense for Geno Smith. Geno Smith has been terrible this year. I don't know what Matt was thinking. Geno scored 9. Jordan Love scored 26. He had Quinshon Judkins on his bench. He started Trey Benson. Alvin Kamara has been okay, but the Saints defense has been awful. Judkins has been pretty good this year. And then Javonte Williams has been awesome for Matt all year. Got him 17 points. If Matt would have started any of these guys over his hipster picks of Geno Smith or Trey Benson or Alvin Kamara, any of those guys, Matt would have won this week. Now, he wouldn't have put up much. He would have put up 114. Matt's team has other issues going on. But bad managing by Matt this week. He takes the L, falls to 2-2. Next, we're going to look at Denny versus Patty, and Pat gets his first win of the year. Big win, needed win to stay in somewhat of a race. Pat goes to 1-3. Denny falls to 1-3. We'll start with Pat. He finally got what he needed from Bo Nix. This game was another close one going into the Monday night game. Pat had Bo Nix. He needed a good game from him. He got a good game from him. Completely put him out. He won by 14, so he was probably going to win. The thing is, he had Bo Nix. He had Ja'Marr Chase going in. And Ja'Marr Chase, that's the scary thing. Pat, every year, he's had the first overall pick. And somehow, it's bad for him. Every single year, it's bad for him. This year, Ja'Marr Chase, who was the safest guy with the highest ceiling and the highest floor, and you can't go wrong with Ja'Marr Chase, he's been awful. Joe Burrow gets hurt. This offense falls apart. Their offensive line is terrible. 5 receptions, 20-something yards. Patrick Surtain took his wiener and stuck it right up Ja'Marr Chase's butt cheeks last night. Didn't matter for Pat. He gets the win. If Bo Nix can start to play good. Finally, Marvin Harrison Jr. did something. We talked about it. Bucky Irving did something. We talked about it. So if Pat can start to get some contributions from BTJ and Ja'Marr Chase, those LSU receivers need to start helping this guy out because his team can look pretty good. It looks like Braylon Allen's out, so Breece Hall's going to get more touches. Pat's team gets the must-needed win. Denny just can't catch a break, guys. He just can't catch a break. Not only is he scoring a shit ton of points this year, but he's losing all those games where he's scoring a shit ton of points. He lost Malik Neighbors this week. So Neighbors gets 3 points and then tears his ACL. He's out. I mean, Denny's team looks okay, but it's going to be tough for Denny. He's 1-3. He lost his best wide receiver. His quarterbacks, they're okay, but they're nothing special. So keep an eye on Denny. It's an unfortunate situation, but it might be a rough year for Denny. Next, Cass versus Cal. This was a battle of 1-3 teams, and Cass and Cal both put up some points. Cal, unfortunately, puts up his most points of the year, 156. But Cass says, sorry, my friend, I'm putting up 171. Cass by far has his best week of the year. Justin Fields, he's what, 27 points for being terrible. He gets those rushing yards, and that's all that matters. 81 rushing yards, 1 rush TD. So Cass gets him 27 points from Justin Fields. Cortland Sutton looked pretty good. The big thing is Omarion Hampton. Omarion Hampton, 25 points. He's the main runner. Now that whatever is Najee Harris tore his ACL, and you saw it this week, he's going to be the bell cow. Huge big pick for Cass in the draft. It looks like it's going to pay off for him. But like I said, the big thing, his quarterbacks now, or running backs now with Omarion Hampton, Josh Jacobs, Kyren Williams. Cass has probably the best group of running backs in the league. He's starting Justin Fields and Bryce Young, though. We'll see. Either way, it was a great week for Cass. Justin Jefferson gets him 10 catches, 120 yards. If Justin Jefferson can start rolling with Carson Wentz, Cass's team can get back on track. But he gets his second moves to 2-2. Not bad. He's still in the race. Cal on the flip side, just a rough year for fantasy for Cal. He's 1-3. Caleb Williams went back down to taking dumps. Carson Wentz ended up surprisingly get him 21 points somehow. It's so hard to lose in fantasy when you have a position player score you 30 points. Cal did that this week. Ashton Jeanty finally had his coming out party, gets him 32 points. Cal still loses, which is really frustrating, mainly because guys like Sam Laporta, DJ Moore, these guys, DJ Moore especially, when you have Caleb Williams as your quarterback, you need that connection, and DJ Moore has been so bad this year. And what do we do with Nico Collins? I mean, 9 points, again, he's had one decent week this whole year. So Nico Collins needs to get his shit together. Cal takes the L, falls to 1-3. Next, we're going to go with our first matchup of this week. So that was all of our week 4 recap, guys. We're going to go look at week 5 real quick. My matchup of the week is Justin versus Cass. Cass coming off a big victory, moves to 2-2. Justin coming off a big victory over Jace, 3-1. And I really like both of these teams. Question is, how are they going to handle their buys? They got some buys there. Josh Jacobs is on buy. Justin has a couple guys on buy. But in general, I'm going to give the nod to Justin. I just think his team's a little bit better. His quarterbacks are a little bit better than Cass's. We'll see. I mean, to be honest with you, though, the matchups kind of even it out because Dallas's defense is so bad, and he has Justin Fields. Miami's defense ain't good, and it's Bryce Young. So maybe the matchups make up for it, but I do think Justin, with Puka Nacua, maybe A.J. Brown gets something rolling. James Cook has been awesome this year, and Justin is starting Quentin Johnson, who's become the lead guy in the Chargers offense. I'm going to give the edge to Justin. Like I said, I think his team's just better, but I think this game is going to be insanely close. I think it's going to be insanely close. We'll see what ends up happening. Cass needs a decent game to start the week from Kyren Williams on Thursday Night Football. So that's our first matchup. Next matchup, we're going to go look at Tim versus Denny. 3-1 Tim versus 1-3 Denny. I kind of mentioned Tim before. We'll talk about it more when we get to the standings. But Tim is a very underwhelming 3-1. He's had some really lucky matchups, and his team hasn't really been putting up too many points. Denny is the bizarro Tim. He puts up a lot of points and has some unlucky matchups and unlucky stuff going on. So this is going to be a really fun matchup to watch. Denny has to find a replacement for Malik Neighbors. Maybe he can get stuff going with Trey McBride finally getting rolling. The good news for Denny is his starting quarterback, Stroud, is going up against Baltimore D, which Baltimore D has been awful. Both guys are going to have to deal with a couple buys, but we'll see. Derrick Henry hasn't been much, and he's going against Houston D. I'm going to give the nod to Denny this week. I think a 1-3 Denny, even without Malik Neighbors, somehow gets a victory over Tim. I think Tim's luck kind of runs out this week against Denny. I think Denny has some good matchups. Maybe he plugs a couple guys in. It will be tough for Denny, but I think he squeezes out a victory over Tim. Next, we're going to look at Learning Computer versus Llama. Battle at 2-2 guys. 2 guys fighting for a playoff spot. This is going to be an awesome matchup this week. Most guys have all of their players playing. There's really no buys that either guy has to deal with. I talked about Lamar. This matchup's going to come down to that. Lamar's hamstring. Is he hurt? Is he not hurt? What's the situation? He plays against Houston D, which is one of the best defenses anyway. So we'll see. I assume Matt's going to start all those good players that he benched this last week. You know, Jordan Love. Well, Jordan Love's on bye, so he can't start him. But I assume he's going to maybe think about starting Junkins and definitely Javonte Williams. So if Matt switches out a couple of those guys, Matt also is going to benefit from the Malik Neighbors injury. He does have Wandale Robinson. So we'll see what happens there. Ryan on the flip side, I mentioned Mahomes getting rolling. He's feeling it again. Baker's feeling it. His quarterbacks, he took them early in the draft, and he's paying off. They're doing really, really well for him this year. His wide receivers, on the other hand, not doing really well. Ryan might need to try to trade for a wide receiver. I don't know if he can do that or not. He's had a great pickup with Jake Ferguson. So this is going to be a really, really close matchup. I'm going to give the edge to Ryan this week. I think the quarterback gap is going to be a little bit too much. If Jordan Love wasn't on bye, I'd give the edge to Roman, but he is on bye. He's going to have to start Geno Smith. So we're going to give the edge to Ryan this week. Next, we're going to go with Jace versus Pat. Sweet Chin versus the Titties. Pat needed a win last week. He got it. Jace needed a win last week. He didn't get it. Jace is still in first place. He's still 3-1. He still has the most points in the league. His team still looks insanely good. But he has no Tyreek Hill. He still doesn't have Rashee Rice. He's going to be an interesting spot. Pat's team doesn't really have to deal with any buys this week. His guys are getting rolling a little bit. I'm going to give the upset here. I'm sorry. I'm going to give the upset. Jace loses Tucker Kraft this week. Pat's guys are fully healthy pretty much. Jamar Chase, I think maybe he does something. We'll see. But I'm going to give the edge to Pat this week. I think he upsets Jace. I think his quarterbacks come to play. The main thing is going to be his flex spots versus Jace's flex spots. Jordan Mason's been really good for Jace, but can he come through? I don't think he can. Cleveland's D has been insanely good. So we'll see. I'm giving the upset to Pat over Jace. And last but not least, we're going to talk about is Josh versus Cal. Cal's had a rough year. This game's going to be really, really close. He's starting Spencer Rattler at quarterback, which is not the best thing, but he's got Xavier Worthy back. He put up 150 plus points. Kenneth Walker has been doing pretty good. Charbonnet's back for him though. DJ Moore's on bye, which means Caleb Williams is on bye. Josh though, he still doesn't have CeeDee Lamb. He did have a couple guys on bye. We'll see. I think this game's gonna be really, really close. Cal's gonna need a good game from Carson Wentz. It's the early London game on Sunday. I'm gonna give the edge to Josh in this one though. I think his receivers are just a little better than Cal. I did mention the big one. The X factor is that Nico Collins and that awful Baltimore defense. So that could be a huge one. Nico could go off for like one of his 30-point games that he's had in the past and really, really hurt Josh. I'm still going to give the slight edge to Josh, but I think this game is going to be very, very close. It's going to come down to that Monday night game where Chiefs play the Jags. Cal's going to have Xavier Worthy. Josh is going to have Trevor Lawrence, and we'll see who can outscore who that night. So that's all of our matchups for Week 5, guys. Real quick, we're going to look at the standings. Jace, like I mentioned, is in first place at 3-1. He is dominating everyone in points at 673. Next, Justin's at 3-1. He also is the only other person over 600 points, so Justin is putting up points. Then you have Tim, 512 though. Tim is 3-1, but he has the second least points in the league, which is kind of crazy. Second least points in the league at 512. Josh just sneaks into that fourth spot at 2-2. His point total edges out the other 2-2 guys, and Josh has the most points against at 614. 5th and 6th are going to be at 5th, 6th, and 7 are tie at other 2-2 teams. Ryan, Cass, and Learning Computer are all right around there. Points look like it's going to matter this year, guys. It's going to be insanely close. So you have to score points because that's going to be the tiebreaker, I think, this year. Then you get to the 1 and 3s. 8, 9, and 10 are all 1 and 3. Denny, Cal, and unfortunately Pat. Denny has 588 points, which is the 5th most in the league, and yet he's sitting in 8th place. Cal, 523, and then mentioning points, Pat's down at 473. Jace has 200 more points than Pat already this year. So Pat's in a rough spot. He's in last place. He's 1-3. He got the victory last week, but his points are just going to be so hard for him to overcome. He really needs some big weeks. So, guys, those are our standings. We got some awesome matchups this week. Love you guys. Hope you guys had an awesome weekend. Go Chiefs. Go Bears. I'll talk to you guys later.